Welcome back to Rank and File Sports with Jonah and Connor. And today we're going to be going over the ESPN Bracketology from Tuesday, March 4th. Now, before we get into the video, please make sure to like and subscribe. And go ahead and comment your thoughts on who would maybe be some of the favorites for March Madness this year, as well as some first round upsets that you like. So let's go ahead and get this started with the first four. First matchup is a 12 seed matchup between Nebraska and Boise State.
It's an interesting one. I don't know a lot about Boise State. I know you did some research on them the last time we did a bracketology video, and this is coming off of Nebraska's double overtime loss to Ohio State. I was a hater against Nebraska. I kind of wanted to see history keep repeating itself, and Nebraska failed to get a win in March Madness, but they look pretty solid. I think they're going to be able to get a win against Boise State and maybe even make a run if they get favorable matchups. So I like Nebraska in this one.
I'll go ahead and give you the Nebraska pick for now, but I'll just let you know last I saw Boise State was up by 30 on the road in their matchup. That being said, they were playing a four win Air Force team. But 30 points is 30 points. So also with a loss, I think Nebraska's probably not even in the bracket if it were done right now. But we'll go ahead and give them a win over Boise State for the moment. We'll go ahead and keep the Southern pick. 16 seed play-ins don't really matter that much. Ohio State and Arkansas. I know we were just talking about that Ohio State Nebraska game, but if I had to pick this game right now, I would take Arkansas.
I would too, especially considering I know transitive property doesn't exactly work, but Arkansas just beat Vandy today 90 to 77. And Vandy is a team that is firmly in March Madness. I think they're an eight
Yeah,
or a
they're
nine seed.
they're
So I do like Arkansas on
nine.
this one.
Yeah, I think the Razorbacks get that one done. Probably about 10 points or so in my opinion. And then we'll go ahead and continue to take Southeast Missouri State. With Auburn and Southern, also we'll go ahead and go by quadrant like we did last time. I think that worked out a little bit better. We'll go ahead and take Auburn over Southern. Don't really need to discuss that too much. And then I know we both like this Creighton team as well. So I think at least I would go Creighton over Utah State here.
I would too. I think they have one of the most valuable players in the league on their team.
Now, we talked about Nebraska potentially getting a favorable matchup, and they certainly do not, in my opinion. I think this Clemson team wins pretty handily.
I think so as well.
Last week, we did the High Point over Purdue upset, and we got some hate, and I personally don't care. I'm going right back to it.
I am too. I mean,
This
Purdue's a
High
good
Point
team.
team is a scary matchup.
If it was any other 13 seed for Purdue, I probably would lean Purdue, but High
I mean,
Point
yeah,
is just
like if you look at the other 13s, I'd take Purdue over Chattanooga and Lipscomb. Maybe you could consider an Akron over Purdue upset, but yeah, this they just get the worst matchup out of all the four seeds. St. Mary's and Indiana. The Hoosiers gave Oregon a run for their money tonight, ended up fizzling out at the end. I think they'd make this a really good game. Personally, I like St. Mary's.
I do too. I think Indiana is a good team, and like you said, is gonna maybe give St. Mary's a scare. But I think St. Mary's is getting hot at the right time, and hopefully their conference tournament gets some building some momentum going into the tournament.
Yeah. All right. The last bracketology, we had Kentucky going down to 14 seed JMU. This time, I like their matchup against Utah Valley a lot better. I think the Wildcats get through.
Agreed.
Illinois and San Diego State. This is probably one of the more difficult matchups we've had to pick so far. So I'll go ahead and defer to you here first, Connor.
Like you said, this is a very interesting one. I'm gonna lean Illinois on this one just because I think their ceiling is so much higher than San Diego State. And honestly, it's a lot higher than some other like top four seeds in this. I mean, that might be crazy to say, but we saw what they just did to Michigan. And if they're able to make that consistent, I'd be scared to play this Illinois team. So I'm going to lean with the Fighting Illini.
Yeah, while you were talking, I just checked the San Diego State score. They just lost to UNLV. So that's actually going to hurt San Diego State. Maybe push them a little bit closer to the bubble. Iowa State and Bryant, Cyclones all the way. All right, Auburn and Creighton. This is a really tough matchup for Auburn. We've picked this Creighton team to go pretty far in a few of the bracketology videos that we've done. But I do think that Auburn will probably get this win. But also, I mean, they lost to Texas A&M today and did not have the lead for 1 second of that game.
Yeah, but that's probably the first time it's happened all season for that Auburn team. And Texas A&M is still a great team. They're playing
They
out of the
are.
SEC. Maybe it's like what Florida did. Florida loses to Georgia and then beats up on Texas A&M. Texas A&M after losing to Florida, they need to get their get back. And what better way to do it against the number one team in the country?
Yeah, just a little bit of a preview of this weekend. I think this is probably the worst thing that could have happened to Alabama is
Hmm.
Auburn losing this game to Texas A&M.
For sure.
Clemson and High Point. I think that Tigers get that win for sure.
I think so as well. High
High
Point
Point,
is one of those one and done kind of teams, I think.
they are. Kentucky and St. Mary's. This is a really tough one. I feel like these are two very different teams.
Hmm.
Personally, I would lean Kentucky here.
I think so too. I think St. Mary's is a good team, but I think kind of like what we were saying about Auburn and the Creighton matchup, I think we've been hating on Kentucky a little bit. They're still a very solid team. Maybe they hit some rough patches, but again, they're playing in the most difficult and competitive conference in the country in the SEC. I think they're going to be battle tested and will be able to withstand a lot of what gets thrown at them. So I do like them in that St. Mary's game.
Yeah, and then Illinois and Iowa State, another really good matchup. I am gonna lean Cyclones, even though they just lost at home to BYU.
Yeah, I'm gonna lean Cyclones as well. Even though, like you said, they did just lose at home. That was a double OT game, and they were down 21 at one point. So this Cyclones team does have the ability to come back, and we've seen early on in the season they have the capability to start hot from the jump and carry a lead throughout the entire game. So I do think that that coupled with Illinois tending to be all over the place. Sometimes they're playing like one of the best teams in the country. Sometimes they're playing like one of the worst teams in the country. I think because Iowa State is more consistent, I like them for that reason.
Auburn and Clemson. We've had this matchup, I think, a couple times before now, and I think we've picked both teams. I'm pretty sure we picked Clemson over Auburn once. Last time we went Auburn over Clemson. I'm gonna stick with the Auburn over Clemson pick for right now.
I think so too. I think Clemson is a good team, but they do have that one signature win over Duke, and Duke has beaten Auburn, but that was early on in the season. I think Auburn is a different team now, and I think they will be able to handle whatever Clemson throws at them.
Yeah, if Clemson can maybe go on a run in the ACC tournament, I'd say Clemson's a team to watch out for to make an Elite Eight run if they can if they can push their way up to a 3 seed, or if maybe they lose early and drop to a 6 seed, that could actually help because I think they're going to
Hmm.
have a better chance of going further if they end up matching up against a 2 seed versus having to get a 1 seed in the Sweet 16.
Yeah,
Kentucky and Iowa State. This this would be quite the matchup. In my opinion, Cyclones are the better team here.
I do think it is a very close debate between these two teams. I'm tempted to pick the Wildcats in this one, but I do think Iowa State has a really good chance. I think the Big 12 tournament is going to be something where they're going to use to get back in rhythm just because they've had to deal with injuries and illnesses to some of their star players. And I think if they have a couple games in a row against quality Big 12 teams to get some momentum again, I think they're going to have the chance to make a run in the tournament. So I think Kentucky will give them a good fight. I could see Kentucky winning this game, but for right
I
now,
could
I'm going to
too.
go with the Cyclones.
All right. Moving on to the next region. Tennessee should take care of business against
Mhm.
Norfolk State. BYU, New Mexico. I really like this BYU team to potentially make a run. In my opinion, kind of like I was just saying with Clemson, I really think they need a different seed. I think a 7 seed would help them so much more.
Yeah, because it's hard to say, is this BYU team really capable of beating a number one seed? And I do think they have the potential to do that, but it's tempting. It depends on who that number one seed is as well.
Yeah, but I really do like BYU over New Mexico there.
Mhm.
Missouri and Yale. This is one of the 5-12s to look out for. And
Mhm.
last week, didn't we had Missouri going really far last week?
We had Missouri in our Final Four because they were coming off
Yeah,
of a couple hot streaks of a game, and then they just proceeded to drop a game to who was it? Vandy in overtime, losing 97 to 93.
call me crazy, but out of all the 12 fives, I like Yale over Missouri the best. And I I really can't see any of these other 12 fives happen.
I could see maybe Drake over Maryland. I know you're very attached to that Maryland Terrapins team, especially after last week. Um, I'm tempted to pick Yale as well, but
I
I
I think we
think
need at least one 12 over 5.
maybe
Let's let's go Yale here.
we can go with Yale. Maybe they'll go 2 years in a row beating them SEC because it was
Yeah,
essentially the same thing last year. I think Yale was a 13 seed and Auburn was a 4 seed last year.
they
Now
were.
they're a 12 seed against a 5 seed. I think they could do it again.
Michigan and Chattanooga should
Taking
be
Michigan
a
in that one.
Wolverines win.
Yeah.
Marquette and UC San Diego. A lot of people high on this UC San Diego team to pull off a first round upset. I think they can do it against Marquette.
I think they can too. I think Marquette's kind of in a just kind of a mediocre spot in their season right now. I think they're beating the teams they should, but they're not really wowing me against some of the other top teams in the Big East Conference. It ultimately will depend on how they do in the Big East tournament, but for this, I kind of like UC San Diego to get an upset win in this one. I think if it's going to happen between any of these 11 seeds against 6 seeds, I think this is one that is pretty likely to happen.
Next up is going to be the Texas Tech Red Raiders and Northern Colorado.
I couldn't tell you a thing about Northern Colorado,
Uh,
so
we're definitely going to research some of these mid majors a lot more once we get closer to March Madness. Starting this week is when we're going to really start diving into some of that stuff. I don't think we've picked a single like 1 through 3 seed to lose in the first round yet.
well, we still
And
got a whole other side of the bracket.
yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Um, Mississippi State and West Virginia. I know you're a big fan of this Mississippi State team recently, and I actually like this matchup for them. So I think Bulldogs get it done here.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I think Mississippi State has capability to compete at a high level. They did just lose to Texas today, who I think gave South Carolina their second conference win this year. But Mississippi State was also down, I think, 4 points with 6 seconds left and came back to tie the game to send it to overtime.
They did.
So I think Mississippi State is still a good team. I think West Virginia also has a capability to win this game. This will be a very interesting 7-10 matchup, but I'm gonna lean the Bulldogs in this one.
Yeah, I was watching the end of that Mississippi State game. It was really, really close. Michigan State will take care of business against Central Connecticut. On to the second round here. I could I could see any of these lower seeds winning in this second round.
Yeah, this is interesting.
All of these games would be really close. I personally really like this BYU team. I would lean BYU over Tennessee, but I don't want to go too crazy. So I'll let you keep me in check here if you want to.
I'm torn on this one because I've been reformed as a Tennessee basketball knower, if we can say that. When we started doing these bracketology videos, I was very low on Tennessee. I thought despite starting the year off very strong, they kind of fizzled out and I didn't really trust them as much. But in their past couple of games, I've started to trust them a lot more, especially after that win against Alabama. I do think that they deserve that number one seed, but I don't know. BYU has shown that they can dominate some really good teams. I know Kansas isn't necessarily like the Kansas that we're used to seeing. They're not a number one or a number two seed in this tournament, but beating them by that much is something I can't really overlook. I'm fine with picking BYU in this one. I think it's possible. And
Yes.
of all the number one seeds, despite the fact that I believe in Tennessee a lot more now, I still think Tennessee would be the most likely team to lose first of those number one seeds.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. They're the weakest number one seed for sure, which, checks out because they're
Mhm.
the fourth number one seed.
Yeah. It's not to say
Um,
that they're bad. It's just,
Not at all. They're a number one seed,
yeah.
top four team in the country. But
Mhm.
out of all the one seeds, I think they would have the best chance of losing, and that matchup against BYU is not a great one. Yale and Michigan. Like I said, you're gonna have to keep me in check because I can also see this being an upset.
I think
I
this
really
is
want to pick
where I
I
think
want
this
to
is where
pick
I'll draw the
Yale, but
line
it
for
it
you.
it makes sense to pick Michigan here, I think.
I think it is too. I think if Yale can beat Missouri, I think they can hold their own with Michigan, especially with the way Michigan has been playing lately. But I do think at the end of the day, Michigan is going to be the
Yeah,
bigger, more physical team, and I think they'll be able to get the job done. But they're going to have a heck of a matchup against BYU.
right. What I didn't mention there was that we have to pick either Yale or UC San Diego to make the second round here. So I think the Texas Tech Red Raiders are done in round two.
It's not out of the question. Texas Tech won by 5 at Kansas. Kansas is, I mean, that's a hard place to play at. They're they've been bouncing around. They've had some close calls with some mediocre teams in the Big 12 like TCU and Arizona State. So I could see it happening. I'll give UC San Diego their flowers, especially because I don't think we've had the chance to have UC San
Yeah,
Diego go on a run because they've always had some tough matchups in the first round that were like, yeah, against any other team of that seed, we would pick them, but they just happen to get matched up against whatever seed that we feel most comfortable in picking.
yeah. Yeah, it's kind of the same story like we had with Purdue and High Point earlier, where
Mhm.
Purdue just got matched up against the 113 seed that we happen to like.
Yeah.
Um, all right. Mississippi State and Michigan State. You love picking Tom Izzo in March, but now you have to try and pick Tom Izzo against this Mississippi State team that you've been picking so much in our YouTube shorts.
The Battle of the MSUs.
I mean, don't don't hate me, but I want to pick Mississippi State here. This would be an insane region to have the highest seed into the Sweet 16 be Michigan as the four. But that's what I want to do.
I I don't know.
Tell me
Michigan
you can't
State.
see it.
I mean, I could see it. Of course, it's March. We've already seen it before conference tournaments even started that there's been crazy stuff. But guess who's been on top of a lot of those March moments before the tournament started? Michigan State. And I'm gonna pick them to win this one. It pains me to do it because I love Mississippi State and picking them, but I do think Michigan State is going to be the better team, and I think you'll see something I will have going on
Here's
later.
here's my final argument for Mississippi State here. I think honestly they have them offensively. I like the Mississippi State offense a lot, and I think they can hang with Michigan State. And if they're able to hang with them, I'm trusting Mississippi State to hit that final shot more.
I
Let's.
don't fully agree with that.
I'll go ahead. I'll go ahead and give you Michigan State,
It would be a
but
really entertaining game, though.
I will I will silently resent you for the next minute.
That's okay, because I
Anyways,
was I was silently resenting you for the Maryland run in the last one, so I guess we're even with our Big Ten teams.
you still haven't given that up.
Eh,
BYU and Michigan, another really good matchup. I like BYU in this one. I think Cougars get it done.
I think I like him in this one too. It would be interesting because I'm gonna jump ahead a little bit. I I'm not gonna have UC San Diego beat Michigan State in that one. I think a Michigan State Michigan rematch for
Yeah,
the third time in the
yeah.
Elite Eight to go to the Final Four would be absolutely insane. But I do think BYU is gonna have a magical run during the month of March. So I like them in this one. And then, like I said, I'm picking Michigan State to beat UC San
Yeah.
Diego. I think it could be
I was
close,
gonna
but
chill out. I was gonna chill out there, and I wasn't even gonna pick UC San Diego if they were playing Mississippi State. We would have just had a very normal 7 seed versus 8 seed in the Elite Eight. It would have been totally fine. But oh well, you had to run it. Duke should take down Southeast Missouri State, and then UConn and Vanderbilt. Uh, I I think Vanderbilt has the capabilities to go on a run, but I don't think that UConn's a good matchup for them, just with the amount of experience that these guys have in March Madness the past 2 years.
I agree with you in that aspect, but I like Vandy, especially with getting that win over Mizzou. A lot of what we were talking about with UConn was if they are able to revert back to form from their national championship run last year. Again, they still have the capability to do it, but I think Vandy has been playing better competition basically for the last month and a half in SEC play, and I think they're gonna be built to take down UConn in this one.
I'm
So I kind of like Vandy in this one.
I'm not completely against it, but this is a Vanderbilt team who did just lose at home to Arkansas.
Uh,
And Arkansas is a bubble team.
but Arkansas is also a team that we've had make runs to the Elite Eight before.
They are, but that's more due to just Calipari being in March Madness as far as that goes versus like the actual. Like Arkansas is only 18-12.
I, I
This
don't
is tough.
really I don't really feel super strongly either way. Because regardless of who we pick, I'm having Duke beat them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So
way to spoil it. I
I
want to lean UConn here,
we
and then
can.
I guess we'll just put Duke through. Oh well.
Oh well. Oh, you have one of the top 10 players in the country on your team, but you're gonna lose early. No, Duke is gonna get the job done.
Well, now that you made like a mocking voice, they're gonna lose to Southeast Missouri State.
That would be really funny.
All
Tends
right,
to happen with us.
Maryland and Drake. We've had this 12-5 matchup before. We picked Drake. Done a little bit of research on this Drake team since then. Maryland is a bad matchup for Drake as a 12 seed. So I think Maryland gets it done here.
I think so too. I think if Drake got a more favorable matchup, I'd be picking them. But I think Maryland is going to have the size advantage. They got some big bodies down low, and I think they're going to be able to play some bully ball
Yeah.
and take down Drake.
All right. Arizona and Akron. Can I make a guess? Is this one of your potential upset picks you've been talking about?
I don't think so. I think Arizona is going to be the better team in this one. I think it'd be pretty interesting just because I think Arizona's been a little up and down lately. They've had some tough matchups. I think they ended the season with games against Houston, Texas Tech, and maybe Iowa State or BYU. Um, but shout out to Akron. I mean, I know a guy on the team. He went to my high school, but I do think that Arizona is going to be able to come away with a win there. I do think it could be a close game, but I do like the Wildcats in that.
All right. Way to be objective. I like it. UCLA and Georgia. This is another tough matchup because I really don't know what to do here. I could see either of these two winning.
Yeah. I know we've had Georgia in the past making close game. I know we've picked Georgia to like beat Auburn or something, or
No, we
you
didn't.
felt strongly about that. No,
Oh, in a short,
in a
not in
short,
a
yeah.
bracketology.
Not in a
Yeah.
bracket, but like we've had faith in this Georgia team before. But I also think UCLA is going to have a significant height advantage. So I think I'm gonna lean UCLA in this one. I do think Georgia can give them a good fight, but I think UCLA will be the better team here.
All right. St. John's and Towson.
Red Storm.
Yep. Red Storm all the way. Kansas and VCU. Give me VCU here. Really been disappointed in this Kansas team this season. And I think VCU is, at least in my opinion, probably going to win that game. I think obviously it'll be close, but I
Mhm.
like VCU better there.
Yeah, it's an interesting matchup. Obviously, you can't discount Hunter Dickinson on Kansas, but I think we have to have some 10 seeds stand a chance in this one. I think VCU is one of the stronger 10 seeds.
VCU is my favorite out of all the 10 seeds.
Well, actually, we'll get to something later, I guess.
Yeah, we'll talk about Memphis and Baylor. Another possibility there. Florida will take care of business against Robert Morris. All right. You already told everybody that we're picking Duke over UConn. Not really that much of a surprise. Maryland and Arizona. I had my fun last week. I'm okay with picking Arizona here.
I don't know. I'm tempted to pick Maryland in this one.
Of course you are. Oh my,
I don't I mean I
wow.
don't know. I don't know. This is a good match. I mean, obviously
It's a really good matchup.
it's two different play styles because like I was saying with Maryland's like they got big bodies down low and obviously Arizona is built on their guards including Caleb Love. So, it's two different styles of play and it just depends on if Arizona can stay hot from the line or from behind the heart behind the arc. So, I'm fine with picking Maryland in this one, especially considering I think
All right.
we'd be going a lot of chalk for some of
Yeah.
this. So I like Maryland in this one. I do think it
All
would be a
right.
very
Well,
interesting game, but
you may have made a mistake in letting me get Maryland one round further. I guess we'll find out later. UCLA and St.
I
John.
know how you feel about that Duke team though. So
UCLA and St. John's. This is a honestly, it's a tough matchup for St. John's in my opinion.
yeah, it's an interesting one. St. John's has been able to meet every challenge that they've come up against. I mean, usually when you see a team like St. John's in like the top 10 in the country, you're like, okay, they're probably just at a great record, but they don't really beat anyone. They beat up against other Big East teams, but they don't play anyone good. Now they have some good quality wins. I'm I think St. John's is where I'm leaning. I do think UCLA is going to be a tough matchup for them, but I do like the St. John's team.
All right. Speaking of teams that we like, I like VCU a lot. And this this would be a stupid upset to pick because Florida is just so good. But it's March Madness, and I could see I could see this potential 10 over 2 in the second round. I could see it happening.
It's possible. I don't know how to feel about this one. I don't know as much about VCU that you do. So my gut is saying Florida, but like I was alluding to earlier, I got some plans for another matchup, so I'm
I don't
leaning
know.
Flor I'm
I
leaning
think
Florida in this one, but if you want to pick VCU, I won't
I
be
really
mad.
do. I really
We
want to
can
pick VCU here. Let's
then
have some fun.
we can go VCU.
Let's have some fun in this bracket. I'm gonna I'm gonna chill out a little bit. I hinted that I would maybe pick Maryland over Duke, and I think they would actually give Duke a run for their money. But let's not be crazy. Cooper Flag is ridiculously good.
Yeah, they're Duke's on another level. They're gonna make a deep playoff run. Blue
Yeah,
Devils are gonna win this matchup.
I
St.
agree with
John's.
that. St. John's and VCU. This is another really tough matchup where I could see VCU winning. I know you've been liking St. John's a lot.
I'm wondering if I've liked them too much though, because I know I've picked them to go
You
pretty far. It's really
exactly. So is this our first double digit seed to the Elite Eight?
I don't know. I'm doing some
I
quick research on VCU just to see where they're at. And I know George Mason was another team that was initially on the bubble,
Yep.
but VCU has been able to contain them. They don't have any like quality wins. Like they haven't played any ranked teams or any really of note, at least from what I've seen.
Well, looks to me like they've beat Kansas and Florida. So that seems grounds enough to pick them to beat St. John.
I meant during the regular season, but
I
yeah,
know
I
what you meant.
guess. You know what? VCU had a spectacular run. What was it? Almost 2 decades ago. They were one of like the first four teams, and they were able to make it to like the Elite Eight or something. There was some VCU team that had like an incredible Cinderella run, and I think this is a year that they can get it done too. So we'll go VCU for this one.
Let's go.
You're gonna have to bear with me later on,
Yeah,
though.
I'll I've had some fun now. So
Mhm.
I'll let you have yours too. Houston and
Houston.
Omaha. Okay, glad you're not picking Omaha because I would have had to argue a little bit
No, I'm
there.
not that crazy.
Ole Miss and Gonzaga.
Ole Miss has been struggling lately.
They have they've been dropping seeds. I think they
I
were a six. They might have been like a five or six like 2 weeks ago, and
It
they're all the way
might have
down to
been.
eight.
I think I think that's gonna be indicative of what's gonna go on during the SEC tournament. I think they're probably gonna lose pretty early. I think they're a solid team, but for this one, I think I like Gonzaga.
Yeah, honestly, I would be more worried about this Ole Miss team maybe dropping a couple more seeds to like
Hmm.
a nine or a 10. But then, they could be a scary matchup for a seven seed if they
Yeah,
were to do a 10. Oregon and McNeese. I think Oregon should win that one.
give me the Ducks. Yeah,
And then I also think Texas A&M, especially after what they did to Auburn tonight, we can't pick them to lose in the first round of Lipscomb.
definitely not.
All right, Louisville and Arkansas. I like Louisville here.
I like Louisville as well. I think Calipari can maybe make it an interesting game, but I think Louisville is a little underrated of a team.
All right, Wisconsin and Jacksonville State.
Going Wisconsin. I think Wisconsin's got the tools to make a very deep run. I
Yep.
think they have one of like the top five leading scorers in the country too.
All right, and I also like Baylor over Memphis.
I really like Baylor in this one. I
All
think
right,
Memphis is a good team, but even though Baylor is like technically Baylor's a bubble team, but like they have room to lose a game, but I think they are a better team than just being on the bubble.
Alabama and South Alabama.
Good in-state
I
rivalry
think,
there,
yeah, I don't know
but
about
Alabama
rivalry
won't get it done.
in state. Houston and Gonzaga.
I'm going Houston in this one, even though Gonzaga has been here before. Houston has also been here before and has arguably had more success in recent years. I think Gonzaga has kind of fizzled out from being that like perennial title contender. So I like the Cougars in this one.
I do as well for sure. All right, Oregon and Texas A&M. Honestly, I feel like Oregon is probably the weakest 5 seed,
I
and
think they are too.
I like this Texas A&M team more than Oregon for sure. I think Aggies get it done here.
I do as well. I think the Ducks can be a good team. I think they've shown signs of being a strong team, but after what Texas A&M just did to Auburn, like you said earlier, I think I like A&M in this one.
Yeah, and Oregon was also trailing Indiana, who's a bubble team, for
Hmm.
a long time tonight before pulling away in the last 2 minutes. Louisville and Wisconsin. This is a really tough matchup for me to pick because I like this Louisville team. We had them go on a run in the last bracket, so proved that we believe in this Louisville team. I think Wisconsin definitely has a chance to win this matchup, and I think it's about time we pick Wisconsin in a game like this.
I couldn't agree more with you.
Excellent. And then Baylor and Alabama. What are your thoughts on this game?
Give me Baylor. I
I
like
knew you were going to do that.
I like Alabama. I think Alabama is still a good team, but not they've dropped a couple games. Granted, they have been to like top 10 teams. It's been to Tennessee, it's been to Mizzou, it's been to Auburn, but I don't know. Something's telling me that Alabama might end up losing early on, just like Florida, and it's going to be to a 10 seed. I like this Baylor team. I don't know what it is, but I
Yeah.
think Baylor can maybe make a little run.
All right. Well, you heard it here first, guys. There's going to be more 10 over 2 upsets than 12 over 5s. All right. Houston and Texas A&M. Speaking of upsets, we just saw Texas A&M beat the number 1 overall seed in Auburn. Could we potentially see Texas A&M beat a really solid defensively Houston team? I think we could because A&M has a great offense against great defense. If they can score points, this one can definitely happen. This, in my opinion, this is one of those overtime games like we saw Houston have in the tournament last year.
Yeah, it might be recency bias because of what A&M just did, but if any team is going to beat Houston before reaching the Final Four, which we haven't had happen, I think we've had Houston in our Final Four
Mhm.
every single time. I think recency bias with it, A&M is one of those teams. I think
Yeah,
A&M is honestly is just as good defensively. Maybe not exactly as good, but they have a very comparable defense to Houston, and I think they'll be able to stand a chance in this one. So give me the Aggies.
you're definitely right about the recency bias because they lost 4 straight games prior to this Auburn win. Anyways, Wisconsin and Baylor, another really tough matchup here.
Yeah, this is gonna be where my Baylor fun will end. I do think it'll be an interesting matchup, especially if they do manage to beat Alabama in this one. But I really like this Wisconsin team. I do think they can make a deep run. I don't want to say they're underrated, but I don't think people are expecting them to make a deep playoff run just because. they're a 3 seed, and it's because you have your Michigan State, your Purdue, your Michigan that have proven success in the tournament. Well, Purdue is kind of iffy, but Purdue is coming off of a national championship appearance, so I do think Wisconsin might be slightly underrated in those terms, kind of in the same tier as Maryland, but I do think they can shock the world and make a deep playoff run.
All right. So the Elite Eight, we have a 1 seed versus a 2 seed. Don't worry, that is the most boring region. Because after that, we have an 8 seed and a 2 seed, a 1 seed and a 10 seed, and a 4 seed and a 3 seed. So starting off these Elite Eight matchups, we have Auburn and Iowa State.
I'm going Tigers in this one. I do think Iowa State is a great team, and depending on how they do in the Big 12 tournament, could determine their success in March Madness. But I do think Auburn is overall the better team. Putting aside this A&M game where they, like you said, trailed the entire time, I think that's just going to be an anomaly of a game. I do think that they'll be able to get the job done against Iowa State, especially considering that Iowa State has played in a lot of close games recently.
All right. BYU and Michigan State. This one, this is, I really do think BYU could give Michigan State a run for their money, but I think at least me personally, I'm going to pick Michigan State here to make the Final Four.
I think I am as well. I wouldn't be surprised if BYU did it. I think BYU is probably the most likely team in like the 5 through 10 range to make, or maybe not 5 through 10, that's a little high, and like that
Out of the four eight
six
seeds, at least.
out of the 4 8 seeds for sure. Maybe UConn if they are able to play to a higher level, but with this current path, I trust BYU to make a deep run like that. I just think Michigan State has been playing at a high level for the past month, especially if they get another win against Michigan on Saturday, I believe, then I have full faith in this Spartans team.
Yeah. All right. Duke and VCU. Now, this one, in the 2010-11 season, when VCU ran on their tournament run, do you know who they beat during that tournament run?
Let me guess, they beat Coach K and the Blue Devils.
No, they didn't beat Duke. Duke's winning this game. They didn't even play Duke. They didn't even play Duke. Yeah, I made you think I was actually considering picking VCU there, didn't I?
I no, I figured you were still gonna go Duke on that one because I know you've picked them to go pretty far in all of these. Now this is the most interesting game.
This is an incredible matchup. I would love to see Texas A&M in Wisconsin. This, oh man, such a tough game to predict. I personally am leaning Wisconsin. I think this is where the recency bias has got to end.
I It's two different philosophies of basketball. A&M does have a good offense, but does have a really great defense, like we said, for why we think they can beat Houston. Wisconsin obviously has had one of the hottest offenses in the country. Yeah, they're averaging over 80 points. Defensively, they're not too bad. They're only giving up about 70 points a game. I I'm leaning towards A&M in this one. And I don't think it's entirely recency bias. I do think that defense wins championships. I know that's kind of contradictory to why we picked A&M to beat Houston anyway,
It
but
is. It is, but
I
that's March Madness.
I do think Texas A&M has a chance to pull off a Final Four run.
Let's go
I
ahead and do it then.
I'm really torn on this. Either way,
It's
whoever wins that
yeah.
game, if they
Well,
get a matchup with Duke,
don't say anything about that yet. We'll get there later. First up is Auburn and Michigan State, which I think would be an excellent game. And oh, this is so tough. Just I don't know. I think we saw tonight that Auburn is in fact mortal, and I can see Michigan State winning this game.
yeah, this is a tough one. I mean, Auburn's probably got the best player in the country, and he's gonna be doing everything he can to will his team to a win. I know Michigan State has been very hot, and if they can beat Michigan to end their regular season and cruise through the Big Ten tournament, I could see them winning this game. I I'm really torn on this one.
I really want to pick Michigan State here.
I'll give you Michigan State on this one.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm gonna need that. Duke and Texas A&M, another really good game, but in my opinion, the difference maker here is the fact that Texas A&M does not have a Cooper flag because there's
Am
only
I
one Cooper flag and he plays for the Duke Blue Devils.
am I crazy for
Yes,
considering
don't even don't
A&M
even
in this
don't even
one?
say it. Don't even say it.
I'm not saying I'm gonna pick A&M for this one, but I don't think it's entirely crazy to say that A&M would have a chance in this game and a pretty decent one.
I think they would have a chance, yeah.
But
But I feel like
Duke is on a completely different level. They're basically just slightly better versions of Texas A&M. They're allowing 60 points per game. They're scoring 83 points per game. I think it's very hard for me not to pick Duke in this one. So give me the
yeah.
Blue Devils.
So we have a national championship of two seed Michigan State and one seed Duke, which honestly is pretty boring considering all
It's
of
a
the
blue
upsets
bloods.
that we had.
It's a blue
But
blood championship.
with with all of the upsets that I picked, including an 8-over-1, multiple double digit seeds to make the Sweet 16, I would not feel right picking a one seed to win the whole tournament. So I am going with Michigan State over Duke in this matchup in a big upset.
Oh man. No, there's if we got to this point, there'd be so many stories and narratives surrounding this. Obviously, you got Tom Izzo, maybe making a really strong case as being the best Big Ten coach in history. Obviously, Duke getting their first national title without Coach K at the helm. Cooper Flag could be a one and done. He could come in as probably the greatest freshman of all time, get a national championship, and go number one in the NBA draft. But I did see something where Cooper Flag was mouthing to his dad, run it back. And I do think there might be a slight chance he comes back for that. And I think he'll have to get a national championship. Give me Sparty.
Incredible. Hey, for the first time in a week, we agree on our national championship pick. Last week, last week we argued over Auburn and Duke for a couple minutes. But hey, this is the first time that I think we haven't picked a one seed to win it. Um, I think we should go a little bit crazier next bracket.
I
We'll
can't
we'll
wait to
have to
see what
see.
it I
Yeah,
can't wait to see when it's just our brackets. I want to see without any of my input what your bracket's going to end up looking like, and I can't wait for you to see mine.
oh well, I'll have a few brackets because obviously you have to have some like realistically, we're probably going to see a one seed win March Madness.
Probably.
But I'll tell you right now, I'm gonna have at least one where Maryland wins. I'll have one where Louisville wins. You might have even convinced me tonight to have one where Baylor wins. There's
Hey,
there's
I'm gonna
gonna
have
be
one
some
more Creighton
fun
wins.
brackets that I make. Yeah, I bet you will. Oh, I gotta have Clemson in one of them. There's there's a lot of teams who have a good chance to make some runs this year. But if you want to see just if our bracket gets a little bit more wild next week, you'll have to come back on Friday night to find out what our next bracketology is going to look like. So please make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on those future videos. We're going to be starting to churn out a lot more content for March Madness as we continue to get closer. So thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in our next video.